Okay.
Troy Taylor,
Baby, know when you're ready.
Hey,
Know when you're ready.
let me know when you're ready.
I'll be waiting on you.
I'll be here.
Waiting on you.
You the one I wanna do life with. Cinderella, it's looking like the shoe might fit. Yo, I'm tryna make you my miss. Cause girl, you got this impeccable style, you're too priceless. Girl, I plan to handle you with care. The Bible did say we entertain angels unaware enough. Just saying, girl, you be coming with it. A lily among thorns, or you to these other women now. I know you've been hurt before, so I'ma take my time and approach it slow. Mistakes, I refuse to help you make another. You look good in many shades, but blue ain't your color. Like Jacob and Rachel, you're worth the wait. When it's real, even years seem like a few days. Hey, I believe you are worth it though. I'll be here when you're ready, just let me know.
Baby, know when you're ready. Know when you're ready.
Hey,
I'll be waiting on you.
wait, man.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Balance Podcast. Again, as always, I want to thank you for tuning in for each episode. We are now at episode 38, which is very exciting. We're almost at 50, and then eventually we'll get to 100 and just keep on going from there. And I couldn't do without you listening, supporting, everything like that. So again, I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. And again, for any new listeners or anyone who might have forgotten, the purpose of this podcast is to be a voice for the voiceless, basically. I finally found my voice again after being silenced for so long, and there's so many across the world who are silenced in so many ways because they're a minority or because they suffer from mental health or whatever the reason may be, or some reason their stories or whatever are not getting out there. And I also wanted to use this as a platform because when you do, you're supposed to help others. When you get on, you help others. And I'm not necessarily on, but I want to be the platform, like let others showcase their talents. And that's why, you heard the music at the very beginning of this episode, and you'll hear 2 more different songs, a little bit in the middle and then at the end of the episode. So continue listening until you hear silence, because again, I want to showcase other creatives. I want everyone to be out there. I just want to do my part in this world, so that's why I'm here. And I want to provide laughs, and I just want people to feel connected and less lonely, all good vibes. So anyway, jumping into the show, I want to do a little bit of international news. And before I jump into what's going on, it just kind of, the story that I'm about to touch on a little bit, it just reminds me of the California story, I believe, where like the boat caught on fire and a bunch of people died, and it was sad. Similar thing kind of happened. So in India, there are 12 people dead and dozens or more missing after a tourist boat capsized in the river. And they believe that it hit a rock, and so that's what caused it. And again, it's just like, man, all of these like accidents related to boats and traveling and all that. And that gets into the next story that I plan to discuss just a little bit, of course. The Democratic Republic of Congo. So according to their Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, 50 people were killed and several people were injured after a train derailed overnight. And so for that, they do not know the cause of the derailment yet. So there's just so much going on around the world, and just kind of thinking of Beyonce a little bit is bigger than you. There's just so much going on. Lives are just being lost every day in just the most silly of ways. So getting to where you're going, every day and getting back safely is a privilege that you need to recognize. Or just going out on the boat or going on a train ride and just getting back safely, like, it's a privilege to recognize, So a little bit, the last thing that we're going to talk about in international news. So in Frankfurt, Germany, police report that around 15,000 people, including many cyclists, took part in a protest against the role of Germany's car industry in climate change and the destruction of the environment. And so Greenpeace, which is one of the protest organizers, they said that as many as 25,000 people were involved, including around 18,000 cyclists. So I'm just glad that climate change is finally getting, the recognition that it deserves and the fight that it deserves. I just really hope that it's not too late, So anyway, jumping into celebrity news and hot topics. So Felicity Huffman, Desperate Housewives. She was also on American Crime that aired on ABC. That was canceled, but Regina King was on it and won her some Emmys for it. A shout out to her. So anyway, I broke it in my cheating episode, and if you haven't caught that one, go ahead and check it out. That she was caught in the college bribery scandal, which also involved Lori Loughlin from Full House and Fuller House. And so basically she was finally sentenced, and she was just sentenced to 14 days and a fine. And of course, that spurred a lot of outrage on social media and articles, blog posts, all these different things for various reasons, because there are many stories that you can point to with black women and other minorities, especially black women, where they were trying to do better for their kids and they're being sentenced to years in prison. As such, there are many people out here, saying that this is an example of white privilege, and it absolutely is. But it's also an example of class privilege, because not only is she white, but she has money, and money talks. Yes, whiteness talks too, but money talks as well. So it's an example of both. So anyway, amongst the outrage, John Legend spoke up, and he basically said that we shouldn't be mad at her sentence. Like, we shouldn't be mad at Felicity Huffman. We shouldn't be criticizing her. We should be mad that it's a crime at all, rather than being mad at the disparity. I think that it should be both. We can do both at the same time. Yes. Now, John Legend makes a good point, but he's making it in the wrong way. What she was doing is buying her daughter's way into school. Did her daughter want to get into school? Did she really care or value in education? More than likely not. And again, this is the same girl. Like, her mom's rich, her dad's rich. They have money. She has access to resources that others do not. Like the minority mothers who are advocating for their children and try to do things that they can to get them in better schools and things like that. They don't have these same resources. They don't have the same funds. Her daughter, if she's struggling, she can, like I said before in the episode, the cheating episode, she can, get help for any kind of learning disability. She can have access to help with her SAT scores, tutors, classes, all these things that she could do. But instead they want to throw money at the situation and buy their way out of it. Yeah, you're trying to provide a better life for your child and help your child out, but your child has to do the work, and you also just can't take the easy route out. And that's where the privilege comes in for me in this sense. And so, yeah, here, John Legend, here to anyone else who has the same kind of thinking, I'm going to be mad at her sentencing, because it doesn't count in this case to me. Now, if you're talking about a mother who lives in a really, really bad district and she faked like an address or used another address, to help her child attend a school in a better area, then you know what? I'm for what he's saying, that you should be mad that it's a crime at all, because in that case, it makes sense. They don't have access to resources. They are disadvantaged in so many ways, and they're doing what they can, literally all that they can, to try and help their child. Those are the people that I feel bad for. Those are the people that I understand more, not Felicity Huffman, not her daughter, not Lori Loughlin, not her daughter, not any of the kids involved in this rich people's scam. It's not fair to others who work their behind off and don't have access to resources, to those who had to scrape, who just came from such horrible conditions and, made it. They fought through, they got the education, they made it into these schools or trying to get into these schools, things like that. So John Legend, he got it right, but he also got it wrong with this one. Moving on to more celeb news. So basically, Sam Smith, they came out and announced that they would like the pronouns they and them to be used as reference instead of he, as Sam Smith no longer identifies as a man. They have come out as non-binary, and they deserve to be respected as such. Now, you might hear me pausing as I say it, because yes, it is hard to, because we're trained to speak in certain ways because of the English language and how it dictates, and it's not necessarily inclusive of different identities. And so you hear me pausing as I'm trying to make sure that I respect his gender, but you see I'm doing it, right? That's the thing. It may be hard and you may not understand it, but just do it. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. It costs you nothing to give them their peace and to respect them. So just do it. So when you're referring to Sam Smith, don't say he, just say they, them. May sound weird, again, may not get it, but just do it. Again, if things are not hurting you, or not hurting others, or causing no imminent danger, then just let people live their lives. Let people do what makes them feel authentic, what makes them feel alive, and what makes them happy, So just kind of wrapping up celeb news and hot topics on the other end, LeVar Ball. So I'm not going to get into the big baby brand or whatever he wants to call himself or rebrand as. But it's just so funny to me that people were just trying to defend LeVar Ball when everything was coming out about him. And to me, he's always been a loudmouth. He's never been like this super, like, to me, he never seemed this super supportive, just tough love dad. No, he seems like an opportunist dad who's riding the coattails of his children because he didn't have what it takes to make it. And didn't have that level of talent, to put it point blankly. His whole big baller brand was built off of his son's name, not his. So anyway, now he's over here calling his son damaged goods, and that's not the way you talk to your child. Like, maybe that's what commentators say, maybe that's what people on Twitter say, but that's your child. You don't call them damaged goods because he has an injury. Like, yeah, sports wise, that might be the case, that might be the call, but again, this is your child. And you need to watch how you talk to them. Lonzo seemed, in the clip that I saw, very visibly uncomfortable. And it was from their reality show. And to me, that's hints of verbal abuse. So it's just funny. Like, I tweeted on Twitter, like, is he still like dad of the year to y'all now? You know? And I feel like, you know, some people say that because many are just like, oh, black dad's in his life. Like, you know, just kind of accept it and go with anything. That's not how it's supposed to be. Like, when you make the decision to have a child, 1, you're supposed to be in their life. 2, you're supposed to do all that you can for them, and you don't deserve the highest accolades for just doing what you're supposed to do because they didn't ask to be born here. You know, you made that decision. You know, all the context of that. So anyway, there's just so much more to being a parent. There's so much more to being a good parent. There's so much more to sacrifices. And I'll just kind of mention this little tidbit about a sacrifice. I was at church once and they mentioned that a true sacrifice is one where you don't expect anything in return. That you don't use that sacrifice to hold over anyone's head to make you feel superior, better. You don't use it any way. It's done in silence and it's left alone. If you're using the sacrifices to make not even just demands but expectations of others, or using that, you know, just anything like that, like, it's not a real sacrifice, you know. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. And wrapping up celebrity news, of course, is Beyonce. So the Creative Arts Emmys happened on Saturday, and Homecoming, you know, Beachella, the documentary, and, you know, most of the show was nominated for 6 awards, and it was snubbed. It did not win a single award. And I know that there was one award where Beyonce lost to Carpool Karaoke. And I'm not even going to touch on that, but I mean, ultimately disrespectful. So for me, it's important to think about how we keep desiring acclaim in white spaces. We are still begging for their applause, their recognition. If we get it, cool. If not, cool. But we need to be focused on elevating our own spaces. And I mean, maybe BET, maybe not. You know, not necessarily BET, as it's owned by Viacom and it's not necessarily black owned anymore. And maybe we need to create something new and stop focusing on the archaic. You know, but that's the point. Like, we have to start celebrating ourselves. When they say, you know, there's like this quote that goes around and it says, you know, if no one else claps for you, you clap for yourself. You know, at the end of the day, you have to clap for yourself. And we keep expecting others to clap for us and give us our things. We need to give ourselves our own things. Let's give each other our roses. That's what it's about. And people like, you know, and Black Girls Rock Against BET's, Viacom and stuff like that. But I like, in theory, what it represents. And maybe we need to take it to a larger scale. Maybe create an event, like pitch something to Netflix here, people. Like, you know. But if you make it, this is my idea. It was on the episode of the Balance Podcast from September 17th, 2019. Okay. But yeah, so also mentioned Beyonce. So Monday, which is actually tonight, even though this episode is releasing tomorrow, she will be airing a documentary, behind the scenes stuff about The Gift, you know, the Lion King album that she had. And I will be watching it, and there might just be a blog post about it that I might write. And when I do, it'll be featured on my website. And my website is kwhocreates.wixsite.com/Lotus. And I will definitely say that again for you, spell it out and do it slower. So KAE, who creates, .wixsite, WIXSITE.com/Lotus. So check it out on there. There's tons of other blog posts I would love for you to read and pass on to others. And also on there, you can always find the latest episode of the Balance Podcast to keep you updated. So yeah, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
I just wanna smoke my shit. I just wanna smoke my shit. I just wanna stack my chips. I just wanna cop fly whips. I just wanna I just wanna stunt in this bitch. I just wanna stunt with my bitch. I just wanna bring my whole clique. G Mono midnight 25 in this bitch. Down like a light switch that's never on. The night is always darkest before dawn. Joe start wildin' out, word is born. Everything getting hit, guns drawn real warm. Cause my mind is the 9 milli, so silly. I'ma win a challenge like my name, Billy Madison. The champion, head honcho, the captain. Eating up the competition, Miss Pac-Man. I just wanna smoke my shit. I just wanna smoke my shit. I just wanna stack my chips. I just wanna cop fly whips. I just wanna stunt in this bitch. I just wanna stunt with my bitch. I just wanna bring my whole clique. G Mono midnight 25 in this bitch. Just right.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Right there. The one listening. Have you subscribed? Did you tell your friend to subscribe? Did you rate and review the show on iTunes or Spotify? You didn't? Okay, well, here's your reminder in the middle of the show during this break to do so.
Phone going dummy, you don't stand up. Running from the rollers if they spin up. Them give money, but they ain't like. Cause I got the sack, boy, ballin' like a curry. I got the white girl going up the mountain. I keep that white girl and her name Molly. Stay with the front seat in the trunk. That's a I came home from the county, know y'all miss me. I told you 200 for a kissy. Only G's in my unit, no 50. But these diamonds down a rocket cost about a couple 50. Squad up, posted at the steno, getting this dinner. Money in my pocket, I can never go Breno. Diamonds so bright to make a say hello. I ain't getting money, man, that's sound simple.
And we're back. So in the last part of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about therapy, and then I'm going to highlight two of our Democratic candidates. We're going to talk about Julian Castro, and then we're going to talk about Elizabeth Warren. And we're not going to get into them too much, but just a little bit to give you a little bit of background on them, and we'll tackle more in future shows. So anyway, therapy. So I think it's very important to recognize when you're sabotaging yourself in therapy. And believe it or not, it happens, and it could be subconscious. You might not even recognize that you're doing it. So here are some signs. So the first thing, you don't try to cope with your problems until you're in your sessions. So one thing that I've gotten from therapy is that you have to be proactive. You can't be reactive. You cannot just, do the work in therapy. You have to do it outside of therapy. You have to use the tools that you're given. You have to use, the processes, everything that you're taught, you have to use outside of therapy. You can't just do the work for that 50-minute, 1 hour block or whatever time it is for you. You have to do the work at home. And also, there's one thing in terms of like anxiety attacks. You have to practice your coping skills, kind of like, your tools. So that way, when you're actually having an anxiety attack, your brain naturally goes to those tools and it actually works and you can actually calm down. If you wait until you're having that anxiety attack, your brain is not going to go to, okay, this is how I can cope. This is how I can calm down. So just keep that in mind. Another thing, you avoid disclosing big past events or you omit any details that make you look bad. If you have a good therapist, they're not here to judge. So even if it quote unquote makes you look bad, it needs to be said, because you know what, maybe you could find the root of why you're doing something problematic or something that can make you look bad, and then you cannot, the point of therapy, you have to be completely honest in order to grow, and you have to disclose the things that might be painful to talk about. You have to go over, the big things in your life. And another thing, you don't speak up when something happens in session that upsets you. And mind you, I'm getting these things from a Huffington Post article that I read. I pulled the most important ones because it was like a sign of 13 things. So if you want to read more, feel free to Google it and read up. But yeah, so you don't speak up when something bad happens in your session that upsets you. One thing that was taught is that this is your session. This is for you. And you have to make sure that you're comfortable and that you're getting what you need. So you can't worry about upsetting your therapist. You need to communicate in a healthy and positive way that what they might have done might upset you or made you feel a certain type of way. You have to stand up for yourself and speak up for yourself. And the last thing is you're not doing what your therapist tells you to do outside of the room, which kind of relates to what I was saying earlier. You have to use your tools. You have to be proactive and not reactive. And you can't just do the work in therapy because it's not going to carry over into your everyday life. And then you're going to wonder why you're not growing and why you're not changing. and then you can also take it a step further beyond what you learned in therapy. But just, it's so important, just use your tools there. So speaking of therapy, I thought it would be cool to kind of tackle or just read about, and again from Huffington Post, what's therapy like around the world? What are the stigmas? What are the costs? Things like that. Because in America, we only talk about mental health when it comes into play of shooters, mass shooters, which mental health isn't to blame for what's going on with them. It's white supremacy, it's entitlement, it's all these different things. So anyway, that's the only time we talk about it here in the United States. And healthcare in general, we don't place a value on in the United States. So I just want to see what it's like in various countries around the world. So we'll talk about the UK first. So the stigma of the UK has shifted. The previous culture, it's like stiff upper up, or just get on to things or deal with it yourself. They're not a nation of, moaners. And for me, that reminds me of Black culture so much, because you're kind of, especially in the older generations, you're just taught to deal with it yourself. Be quiet, just deal with it, or go to church. Like, you're not going to moan, and you're not going to vent to other people and tell people your personal and private business, things like that, And then also, one thing I found interesting was that they said that it's now becoming, dare they say, more fashionable. And I do feel like people are trying to make mental health trendy. And that's just in the United States. I see on Twitter all the time. I think people are trying to make mental health kind of fun and trendy. And it's not something to hop on. Mental health is serious. Mental health is not fun. The people who really are going through these things, they wish to heck that they didn't have to deal with it, So anyway, thinking about costs. So there's a charity in the UK called No Panic Sheffield, and they provide free services. But they have a waiting list that goes up to a year. Psychotherapy is not normally covered in the UK, and if it is with private insurance, it's about $27 to $55 a session. So then moving to Mexico, so there's greater acceptance. Those that you still hear kind of phrases, psychotherapy is for crazy people, and that's in the United States. I think it's for crazy people, and it's not. Your therapist see therapists, and they also say that therapy is to make sure that it's like, again, a proactive measure to make sure that you're on track, to make sure you don't go into that negative space in your head. It's to make sure that you're processing things healthily. It's to keep you on track as well. It's a preventative measure, not just always a reactionary measure. And I think it can also just help you grow as a person and realize so much more about yourself. So it has nothing to do with being crazy. And that's just such a slur, honestly, towards mental health people. You're not crazy, and it's not your fault. It's something that you can't help. So anyways, the cost in Mexico. So no insurance companies nor the government dependencies cover therapy. There's foundations and hospitals and colleges that offer services, and they're as low as $2.50 in the US terms. And then you have private clinics that may pay, or have them pay $15 to $100 based on specialized services. So anyway, in Brazil, stigma very much alive. They're not progressing at all. And what I'm gathering is the cost is privatized, and it's very expensive. But insurance companies that do pay, it can be as low as $10, but you're limited to $40 a year. And that sounds limitation sounds, of course, bad in theory, but when there's 50 something weeks in a year, that's roughly, therapy once a week or like bi-weekly. So that's not bad. That's kind of what you need. So then with France, the stigma, generational, which again reminds me of Black culture. Younger Black people are embracing therapy in droves, which is beautiful. There's some, don't get me wrong, who are still posing ignorant thoughts about it on social media. But, older generations, they don't believe in therapy. They don't, they're the ones to throw out the crazy things and all these various things. So just reminds me of that, But yeah, it's generational in France. More of the young people are going in droves. You can see a psychiatrist in France actually for free due to their healthcare system. Shout out to France for that. Most psychologist appointments are covered by public health insurance, and if there is any difference, private insurance usually makes up for that. Now, there's some laws that remove certain psychologists from the coverage, and then that can make you have to pay out of pocket if you're in France, and that ranges from $77 to $132. Canada. Of course, you already know what I'm going to say. Therapy is widely accepted. There's not much of a stigma surrounding mental health in Canada. And then it's pretty much covered by the social services system or the provincial healthcare system. But if you do have to go private, it's $45 to $224, which is, that latter is on the steep end. It's kind of reminding me of US prices. But anyway, so Italy, the stigma, it is not normalized. And you actually have to justify that you even have a reason to see a therapist. They don't believe in the proactive. They only believe in the reactive. And even that, has limits. So cost, insurance barely covers and most is out of pocket, and it's $55 to $165. And then lastly, India. I find it interesting that mental health and therapy is actually new and unfamiliar in India. And so of course the cost is out of pocket, but insurance pretty much never pays, but it ranges for their sessions $7 to $45. All right, so kind of wrapping up our show, talking about some of the Democratic candidates. We're going to talk about Castro and Warren and just give you a little bit of background on them. So Julian Castro, he has a twin brother. He's the firstborn, not the twin, but Julian himself. But speaking more to his work, he was a part of President Barack Obama's cabinet. He was the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. And if you go to his websites, he has various issues that he plans to tackle. But I'm just going to mention one that was very prominent. So his is like people and planet first. So his plan, he's going to rejoin, if elected, the Paris Climate Accords and rally the international community to go further, achieving worldwide net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The United States, his goal is to achieve net zero emissions by 2045 and at least a 50% reduction by 2030, which is coming up faster than you think. I can't believe I'm getting older. But anyways, and so in his first 100 days, he also plans to propose new civil rights legislation to address the disparate impact of environmental discrimination and dismantle structures of environmental racism. And I love when I saw that on his page, because not many people actually address, environmental racism. And so he also points out on his page that more than half of 9 million people live near hazardous waste sites are people of color. Black children are twice as likely to have asthma as white children, and black children are 10 times more likely to die than white kids of complications from asthma. And that's according to the CDC. And I believe I mentioned that earlier in a way early past episode of the podcast. So yeah, that's very important, and that's something I wanted to mention from him. So moving on to Warren, she taught law for 30 years. She's been in the Senate since 2012. She served as an assistant to Barack Obama and a special advisor to the Secretary of the Treasury. So different experience in different areas, and she knows her stuff. One of her major plans that I saw on her website is ending the Washington corruption, and she clearly mentions that it's bigger than Trump. And that's important because, yeah, there's Trump, but there's people that are enabling him, like Congress, Mitch McConnell, all these people. So it's bigger than that. And so one of the things in her plan for ending Washington corruption is that everyone who lobbies must register, and it's going to shine, a light on their activities. She wants to ban foreign governments from hiring Washington lobbyists and wants to shut down the ability of lobbyists to move freely in and out of government jobs. All right, so yeah, that's wrapping up our show. I will play one more song for you, but I do want to thank everyone who's let me use their music, and I love giving platforms to artists, so this is really great for me. So I just want to thank everyone for letting me use their music. Just Pierre, Waiting on You, Shooter Baby, Hello, Joe Majesty, I Just Wanna, and oh my gosh, I hope I'm not forgetting an artist. Christopher, Sir Chris, Just Friends. Thank you all so much for letting me use your music. And also, guys, in the description for this episode, you'll find their social media handles, and I'll also tweet it when I put out the work. But yeah, I just want to thank them so much, and I want to thank you for listening as always, because without you there would be no show. So just tell your friends, rate, review, subscribe, all of that, and just keep on coming back. All right, so stay tuned for the last song, and I'll see y'all next week.
Do you love me? Do you want me? When you sleep, do you dream of me? If you don't, I feel the same, it's kinda funny. Don't be ashamed, maybe we can just be friends. Maybe we can just be friends. Maybe we can just be. I don't know how the fuck we got here. I know that this shit won't work, nah. Cause you can't put me first, no. And I'm not mad, bro, we cool. Cause we know who really played the fool. Cause you played your part and I played my part, and both the hearts ended up broke. You walked in my life, you was new to